My name's Sally Frost. You must probably got your invite letter from me. I'll be emceeing for you today, and we are delighted to welcome you. You are the top 100 female STEM students in the university. We got the information off our information intelligence. You're from all the colleges, from health sciences, humanities, AES, and Christina wants to clap, so let's clap. So we just wanted to do something to say thank you for doing so well and for making UKZN's name fly high and take a break from your studies and be spoiled. And we've got some excellent speakers to inspire you today. So it's going to be some talks, it's going to be some fun, it's going to be some delicious food and chatting. But without any further ado, we will officially start the program. And this is under the banner of J&J, Johnson & Johnson's WiSTEM program, which is for women in STEM. And the project leader for UKZN is Professor Christina Troy, who is an environmental engineer. She has lots of accolades, but short version, she's a very stylish Italian lady. She is the South African Research Chair for Waste and Climate Change. She is a full professor and a fellow of UKZN. And in her native Italy, where she left over 20 years ago, she has been officially knighted. So she is a Sir Christina, or a Lady Christina. So Christina, if you can officially open the event and welcome us.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's really a pleasure to see such a display of talent and beauty in one single room. So I think that round of applause was for us, all of us, collectively, who are really shaping the future of this country. And in some cases, we started a long time ago, like in my case, but I think I am really overwhelmed by seeing how beautiful and how powerful all of you look today. So a round of applause to us. Okay, so one thing that Sally didn't, thank you very much for the kind introduction. One thing that maybe she didn't say about me is that I made a very bold decision to start engineering. Many years ago, firstly as a student, and then, of course, as a lecturer at the University of Natal at that time, in a completely male-dominated environment. My very first class, I remember, I was like 26 years old, 27 years old. Some of the kids in that, or the students in that class were almost my same age, so it was pretty daunting, I must say. And they were all men, and they remained all men for many, many years. And also the staff members were all men, old men as well, not only. And I was there, very young, very blonde, and people were looking at me with great suspicion. What does she want? What does she want from us? Where is she coming from? Which planet is she coming from? Now, this is not longer the case, of course. We have made really together. In fact, I would like to acknowledge also the great work of the group headed by Dr. Sally Frost, our college public relations department, because over the years they really made Swasti, I can see, hello, Tobacco. Over the years, they've made shape to all our crazy ideas of how to attract more women in engineering, for example, in engineering or in the university as a whole. I give you an example. Engineering is a girl thing. I gave them the idea, and they created the engineering winter school, right? Another for women, only for women. So a lot of ideas that over the years have translated in great events like such these, or workshops, or activities, or even sustained promotion of STEM education and STEM subjects among female students. Now, in 2019, we started a new journey, a new idea, and that was thanks to the support of Johnson & Johnson. I don't see Michelle. Where is she? Hello. Johnson & Johnson is one important strategic partner of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. They have globally, they are of course an institution. I don't need to give too much accolades about Johnson & Johnson and Janssen. But most importantly, they have created a few years prior, 2019 or 2018 actually, a program called WiSTEM2D. I'm sure Michelle, towards the end of this event, will tell you more about it. But what does a WiSTEM2D program means for UKZN? For UKZN means, number one, a multidisciplinary program, where there is not only engineering. There are in fact 4 colleges involved in this program. For the College of Agriculture, Engineering and Science, the 2 subjects, or the 2 schools, let's say, involved in the Women in Science, in STEM education and design program of Johnson & Johnson are, of course, engineering, maths, statistics, and computer science. Some of you are from maths. Raise your hand. Who are from maths? Only 1? 2? Okay. Who is from engineering? Where are my ladies? Over there. And there is, of course, education. Who is from education? School of Education. Only 1. And who is 2? And so I'd like to acknowledge Professor Dillian North, who is the dean, my other friends and partner in crime in this WiSTEM2D. So it's Professor Dillian North for Maths, Stats and Computer Science, Professor Thabo Msibi, who is the Dean of Education, School of Education, and then finally, also the School of Built Environment, Professor Ernest Kalema. So who is from the School of Built Environment from you? Only 1. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, perfect. But so a platform where many disciplines, even sometimes disciplines that are not only specifically in STEM, collided into one single program. And the program, and more recently, we also introduced opened up to the School of Medicine and Health Science, to the College of Health Science. So who's from the College of Health Science? So we are outnumbered, the engineers, we are outnumbered. No, I'm just kidding. The College of Health Science, of course, contains several schools, so I hope that I am sure that you come from many of all the different schools of the College of Health Science. So welcome to the WiSTEM2D program, also to the newcomers. So the WiSTEM2D program aims at creating a pipeline of empowerment, let's say, enrichment as well as empowerment of young female students that from high school have the interest to change the world in terms of STEM education. That's it. That's what WiSTEM2D aims to do. And in such, so at the very beginning of the program, we started with high schools. So we were working more with outreach programs at high school level. And then we said, okay, no, but let's look at our talent, female talent. They're here, they are with us, they are walking this journey with us. And that is the past 2 years, even with COVID, we managed to organize some outreach programs and enrichment programs also with our own students. So what is the future of the WiSTEM2D? Number one, it's a global program. So you can also ask Johnson & Johnson or through us to perhaps be in contact with other female students like you in the WiSTEM programs in other universities across the world. There isn't only UKZN, of course, and not only South Africa. That is also very important for you, for your growth, professional growth, and your networking in the future. The next step of the program is also about transitioning our female students into perhaps taking professionally moving into a position in academia. Some of you may have that aspiration, and you might not have you might have a lot of questions. So if you intend to move into academia, WiSTEM2D program is for you as well. Then, of course, there is not only academia, there is the professional environment, and again, the new evolution of the WiSTEM2D will really assist you guys to transition into the profession. Today, it's about having fun, number one, know each other, displaying our talent, our beauty, but also listening to great speakers. We have been, thank you very much for all the speakers. I don't know, where are they? All in, everywhere, okay. So you have even the pleasure to have in some of your tables the guest speakers today, so ask questions, network as much as possible. So thank you very much for those who have accepted our invitation. And nothing, we can close here. One last word. I know I had 5 minutes, but it's impossible for an Italian to have 5 minutes to speech. But my last word was, I really invite all of you to read a chapter that I wrote, and in fact a book called Rising to the Top. It's a book that was published a few years back in 2019 by the Global Engineering Dean's Council about all the, this is the journey essentially of women across the world that became female deans of engineering, so deans of engineering. Now, in my case, I'm the very first dean of engineering, a woman professor of the history of the UKZN, so of both Natal. Well, and I'm not saying this only to boast. I'm saying this because it's really pathetic if you think about it, that they had to wait over 150 years for a lady from Italy to become the first woman dean. So I think that there is a lot of work that we all need to do to shape the environment in which we work and we operate, of course, to change, to become to enter into a position of leadership in our profession or in our environment. For South Africa, for our countries, in some cases, some of you may not be from South Africa. So in any case, it's a long journey. It will be a long journey, and systems or programs like these will enable to make it shorter, I would say, to make it easier. So one last word. I started thinking, like you, I want to change the world. I want to become an engineer, environmental engineer, I want to change the world. I didn't change the world. I changed the many worlds. And that is, I think, what all of you find the inspiration to change many worlds. Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, who is Professor Kogi Naidu. Professor Kogi Naidu has her MBCHB PhD and is based at CAPRISA, which is the Centre of the AIDS Programme of Research of South Africa, where she serves as the Deputy Director and the head of the Treatment Research Programme. Kogi is an Honorary Associate Professor in the College of Health Sciences at UKZN, and her research has shaped both local and international guidelines on TB/HIV treatment integration. She's a lead investigator in several phase 2 and 3 TB/HIV and drug-resistant TB treatment trials. Prof. Naidu serves on the World Health Organization HIV Treatment Guidelines Committee as a board member of the South African HIV Clinician Society and for the J&J Global Public Health HIV Working Group. She serves on data safety monitoring committees for various community-based TB treatment and prevention strategy studies. Prof. Naidu has published over 120 peer-reviewed publications, which is quite something, has authored several global health textbooks, supervised several masters, PhDs, and postdoctoral research fellows. She also serves as a reviewer for several leading international journals and was awarded the South African Medical Research Council Post-Intern Research Scholarship in '94, the Fogarty Ellison Research Scholarship in Global Health in 2005, and the 2013 Union Scientific Prize awarded by the International Union Against Tuberculosis and Lung Disease. So Kogi, let's hear what you have to say. Welcome.
Hi everyone, and thank you very much to the organizers for having me at this very, very nice, warm, wonderful occasion. I mean, it's just fabulous that UKZN is celebrating their women in science. And thank you to the sponsors for actually recognizing this and recognizing the women that are our future leaders. So I'm going to share with you over the next 20 minutes or so my journey in science, and specifically in science and medicine, and sort of share some of my experiences in life as well as in science, and hopefully there'll be some nuggets from my story that you can either relate to or adopt in your own journey so that you can change the many worlds that you want to change in your journey. So I'm not in control of my slides, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to be saying next and being a bit annoying. But Tebogo is going to be controlling the slides, and so so we will start. Thank you, Tebogo. Slideshow, please. Okay, so you've heard about that I'm from Caprisa. I've been there for almost 2 decades now. And as of 2020, I also serve as the Caprisa Deputy Director. And I report to the very famous Professor Salim Abdul Karim that I'm sure you've all seen or heard of over the years. Next. So I will give you a brief overview of who I am, so you'll get to know me a little bit better. I'll talk to you about my journey in science, and my journey in medicine, and I'll leave you with some parting wisdom. So once upon a time, I was a young, struggling person, struggling with many things. Decisions about what to do with my life, decisions about what to study, decisions about where to study, and decisions about how I'm going to fund my studying. I come from a small matchbox house, which I shared with an extended family, my 3 sisters and brother, my parents, 2 uncles, and a grandfather. And it was a 2-bedroom. So the kitchen table is where I did my studying for med school. And you know, when you study, anybody in medical school 5th year, 9 packed lever arch files plus many, many textbooks for you to pass. And you have to wait for the family to complete their dinner so you get your spot on the table and you can get going. If not, the floor is available. And so that the area that I grew up with was impoverished in more than just money and things, right? There wasn't much in terms of stimulation. They want people that will engage you and talk to you and mentor you. So you pretty much had to figure things out for yourself and find out, about the world and what your options were. We didn't have that internet at our fingertips. We didn't even have people who went and completed secondary education, let alone tertiary education. My parents didn't have high school. They didn't even go into high school education, but they valued education. They just didn't have the opportunity to access education themselves. And everything we had, we shared. We shared the bed. We shared the cupboard. We shared everything. And you never demanded, because it is what it is. You know, you never knew that you could have your own cupboard. You just accepted it as the norm, and you just got on with things and did what you needed to do to succeed. I was very fortunate to have gotten a place at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And as this book, it's a book that was published about 10 years ago. It was a school of struggle. I grew up in the time of the struggle against apartheid. So bombings and state of emergencies and necklacing was part of the norm. It's what we grew up accepting as a normal society. And a young, naive person coming into university and being part of the struggle and feeling compelled to be a part of it so that you can make a change. And within 2 months of being admitted to medical school, I was jailed for protesting, right? Me and the whole of medical school. So safety in numbers. And my father said to me, you got yourself in there, you got to get yourself out. You know, so we had to rely on the forces to help release us, and all we were fighting for was equal opportunity at the time. And so that transition was difficult, taking a public bus to and from school, taking the bus with a see-through bag of bones that I was carrying, and people walking away from me in the bus because they didn't want to stand with me because they could see a skeleton inside that bag. And having people spray me because I had the smell of formalin on me in second year, and I was on the bus. And I remember sitting next to a vagrant on the bus. And I was stinking of formalin, and he pulls out from his many packets, he rummages and takes out a can, and he sprays me because he couldn't tolerate sitting next to me, and I wasn't even aware that I was actually stinking of formalin. So those were the difficult times. But in all of that, it was such a beautiful experience, and one that I would not want to change in any way because it shaped me for who I am. My studies was funded through a bursary that funded my education only. But having funds to travel to and from university, to buy textbooks, and to engage in some of the activities required money, and they simply wasn't enough to go around. And so I worked part-time every weekend and every holiday to fund myself. And even then, it's what everyone did. You just got on with it. Luckily, while I was an undergrad medical student in third year, I became aware of the Ford Foundation, which was philanthropy that was investing in the upliftment of science and young people in Africa. And the Ford Foundation lived in the University of KwaZulu-Natal and offered scholarships to undergraduate students where you assist somebody senior by collecting data or assisting them with the dirty work that they don't have time to do, and that helped them achieve their master's degrees, PhDs, and so on. And I was so fortunate to be attached from 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th year med school in my December holidays to these senior people. I learned the love for research. I got to rub shoulders with people that I just looked up to that were so knowledgeable. I got to understand the research process, and unknown to me, it ignited a passion inside of me that still lives to this day. And so, of course, in all of this as women, there's a balancing act, right? There's the relationships, there's children, there's responsibilities for growing them and nurturing the next generation. And we need to do it. You know, we need to balance, we need to be whole. You can't exist in a vacuum when it's just about you and your career. Because happiness, while fulfillment, success comes from your career, balance and happiness comes from things that goes beyond your career. And so I'm very lucky. I'm in a relationship for 35 years. I met my partner when I was 19. I was mum to one, and now I'm mum to 2 boys, and of course they're men, and one of them is a graduate. And of course, when anybody asks me, you know, how are you doing? I don't say I'm successful deputy director. I say I'm a mum. I love being a mum. And so that is what we connect with on an emotional level. So it's a part of ourselves that we cannot bury. And so my journey, my career journey, has been shaped by the HIV epidemic in this country. Everything I've done has been in response to the passion inside of me to be responsive to the sickness and dying around me. And so it was a journey that was about awareness of the environment, it was about consideration, and it was about decision making. When I got to be a young medical student and a young doctor, HIV was first discovered in the US, and the reports were filtering through about this virus that was discovered by 2 Nobel laureates, Françoise Barré-Senoussi and Robert Gallo. They both identified the virus simultaneously, and there was a lot about the struggle to treat people with HIV in the Bronx, where their first ever facilities, health facilities, were set up to manage people that have the virus. And the training that I received through the Ford Foundation spurred me on to do something that was atypical. After my medical internship, I applied for a post-intern scholarship that will give me 1 year to help me decide what I want to do with my life and do more research, but here to lead the investigation rather than to be a part of it, to see if this is actually what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so Robert Frost has this amazing poem, and this is just the first clip from there, and I urge all of you to read it, because we all come to that point in our journey. At some point, you're faced with a decision of which way to go. 2 roads diverged in the woods, and you take the one less traveled, which is what I did. The easy thing for me is to become a medical specialist. I loved clinical work, and to journey in that direction. But then it was, do I stay in practice, which I had dabbled in for 10 years while doing medical research, or do I branch off and commit to medical research and make my career there? I loved clinical work. I loved seeing patients. But when I made that decision that my value would be more impactful in society as a scientist than as a clinician, it was a decision that felt like I was sawing off my arm. I'm taking away part of my identity in order to focus on the other half. But it's amazing that if you're passionate about medicine and passionate about science, you end up finding the whole in your journey. And so when I joined as a post-intern scholar, I recognize what you can see here is from 1990, and I joined in 1993 as a post-intern scholar, the rising prevalence of HIV in pregnant women. So each year you can see, from the time I started up to 2006, 1 in 3 young women between 15 and 39 were HIV positive. 1 in 3. It's staggering if you think about this room and you take 1/3 down the line being HIV positive and doomed to a life of chronic treatment. At the time, there was no treatment available. And so through this post-intern scholarship, I became aware of work that was going to start in Durban to look at interventions to reduce mother-to-child transmission. So I went on a path where I spent 3 years doing pediatrics. All I saw were dying babies and dying mothers, and I knew, I was compelled that I needed to be part of an intervention. So the first project that I got involved in, that was conducted in 1994, was to show that it is safe to give newborn babies antiretrovirals. And in fact, it helped prevent newborns to get HIV infection from their mothers who were infected. I then got involved with 2 large studies that showed that if you treat the mothers in their pregnancy or when they're about to deliver, you reduce the risk of transmission of HIV from mother to unborn baby. Those findings were adopted in South African guidelines as well as guidelines throughout the world. And that has led. So when I first joined, 30% of the women were HIV positive. Of those, 50% of the babies were born HIV positive. Now, about 1.7%, less than 2% of babies are born with HIV as a result of these interventions being adopted in policy, in clinical guidelines and practice. So you saw earlier on the chronicle of the AIDS epidemic in the Bronx, and it was the same two authors, Gerald Oppenheimer and Ron Bayer, that chronicled that history. And when I started as a young scientist, I inherited over 2,000 mothers and babies that had nowhere to go to access care, to access services. Though we didn't have antiretroviral treatment at the time, somebody needed to look after these women. And so I set up an AIDS clinic at a hospital when government would not recognize that HIV causes AIDS. I was able to set up that clinic and look after these mothers and babies. And the same two authors decided to profile individuals at the time that were looking after HIV and looking and in the face of the AIDS epidemic in South Africa very early on. And this is a very young me taken more than 20 years ago. And I think you went back. Forward again. Thank you. Yeah. And as I was managing these services and looking after people, I began to recognize that we're saving the babies, but the adults are dying of tuberculosis. And so, yes, we're starting to get treatment available for HIV and so on, but we needed to understand the tuberculosis that we're seeing in this country, especially as it related to people in HIV. So there was an increasing burden of TB amongst young women, and young women were not only getting TB, they were dying from TB. And most of them had underlying HIV. So this gentleman here, Professor Jerry Friedland, is a professor of medicine and public health at Yale University. When I was a young doctor, running my HIV clinic, I had no textbooks to reference. I had no mentor. I was learning. It was blank. All I knew is I had this John Bartlett manual that came up, that I picked up at an AIDS conference, and I would read. I will manage my patients. I would email John Bartlett and say, I'm seeing something unusual. Can you please help me? And from Johns Hopkins, he would respond. By the time I get up the next day, I had a response to my clinical query. And so Gerald Friedland was a frontline doctor in the Bronx. And he found me trying to manage my patients and save lives, and he decided to take me under his wing. So every year for 3 months in a row, he would sit with me in the consulting room and teach me medicine and teach me HIV so that I could do better for my patients. And it's through his knowledge that I was able to provide antiretroviral treatment for the very first time in government clinics in South Africa through my clinic in King Edward. I was able to do it because I wasn't employed by the DOH. I was employed by the medical school, and so there wasn't the same rules that applied to me. And I would call pharmacies throughout the country. A guy would come on a scooter and go into the locations. So long as the patients could come up with 300 Rand, they will get dual therapy. So I got them to open spaza shops. My patients would sell bread and milk to make their 300 Rand to fund their months of ARVs. And so it was such a success that I became the expert in antiretroviral treatment provision simply through my fumbling and my will to do things and make lives better for other people. And so because of that, Caprisa asked me to come across because Slim needed expertise in antiretrovirals. And so I started the very first AIDS treatment program in KwaZulu-Natal. And very, very soon we had about 6,000 patients on treatment in a rural farm as well as in an urban clinic. And some of our experiences have been documented in publications. And of course, we helped shape the National ARV Treatment Guidelines, the very first one that became part of the public ARV rollout in our country. And so in this journey, again, it's very early on when I started in Caprisa, we decided to look at, okay, so we have HIV and we have TB coexisting in one patient. Doctors did not want to treat the HIV or the TB because they were afraid of killing the patients and making them sicker. And given that we had such a large population of dying people, we needed to answer the fundamental question that will shift the mindset of doctors and enable them to treat more patients. And so we looked at the question of how do you co-treat HIV and TB, and I led a lot of the research that led to the guidelines being adopted for this particular problem. So the issue was there's a whole range of clinical issues but that prevent you from starting treatment. But if you don't, people die or get sick. So it's a risk-benefit ratio, and we had to develop answers to each of these questions. And so the science that I led was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. That is the premier journal amongst all journals that's published in the world. You will learn about impact factor as you grow older in science. It has an impact factor of over 200. Okay, the South African Medical Journal has an impact factor of 2. Okay, so this journal, if your science gets into that journal, it gets noticed throughout the world and it gets adopted into policy and practice. And so the findings from the research we led to WHO guideline changes and changes to guidelines that had people that have TB and HIV throughout the world, South Africa, Britain, the United States, wherever. And just in this country alone, implementation of this evidence has led to a 52% reduction in death in people that have had both TB and HIV. So in our country alone, from 2009 to now, we're saving about 10 to 15,000 deaths each year simply by implementing these guidelines. Next. Okay. Of course, your work involves more than just the passion. You have to do things administratively to make sure that the environment you're working in is structured and is set up for delivery. So much of what we did was around expanding infrastructure and becoming part of the CAPRISA Executive Committee, as well as being a good citizen. So when somebody calls you and asks you for help, wants you to be collegial, wants you to give off your time, you don't say no. You look at how you can enable it and fit it into your schedule so that you can be a good citizen. And of course, my PhD was a struggle. I became really familiar with my field, but I didn't want to commit. And I had a mentor, Prof. Slim, who wasn't a clinician, but I was still very much a clinician, and my questions that I wanted to answer was very much rooted in the clinical space. And so for my first paper, he refused to allow me to register my PhD until my first paper was accepted for publication. But he kicked me out of his office for 3 years. He couldn't understand what I was doing. He couldn't make sense of it, and he asked me to revise and revise and revise. And I would leave his office and feel physically ill because he didn't get me and I didn't get him. Eventually he said, go ahead and submit. I'm not sure what you're about. Submit it and let's see what happens. And the paper got accepted first shot. You know, just the first submission, I didn't have to resubmit it. And it took me 36 months to get to that point. And my thesis had 8 papers and not a single comment from the 3 international reviewers. The thesis was accepted as is, and it was one of the first, I think, from higher degrees because they didn't know how to deal with the fact that I didn't have corrections for a resubmission. And in all of this, I journeyed with a young statistician, Nonhlanhla Yende Zuma. She was my master's fellow. And she and I worked so beautifully together, and I continue to mentor her, and she's now the head of statistics and data management at CAPRISA. She's also been listed in Bill Gates' blog. Bill Gates has found out about her and how she's transformed herself through science and mathematics and computer science, and so she's on her own trajectory for greatness. Thanks. Oh, sorry, and in my graduation, one of the crowning moments was the other gentleman, please go back. The gentleman you see standing next to Slim is Robert Gallo, the Nobel laureate, who also got his honorary PhD from UKZN at the same graduation as myself. So that I was pretty chuffed about that. So Robert Gallo, if you remember, discovered HIV in 1986. This, I'm so proud of the fact that this International Union Prize is one of the most coveted prizes, science prizes in TB. And I was able to actually get the prize back in 2013 for all the work that I did in TB, HIV co-infection. Thanks, next slide. And now I've expanded beyond just the clinical environment and just the patient-facing issues. I've expanded to a whole range of basic science experiments looking at why people with HIV have heightened risk for TB, and looking at targets that we can now identify that will be the place for future vaccines and future drugs, so we can be more effective in preventing and treating tuberculosis. So these are all the collaborations are set up. This is the program that I lead. It's basically about saving lives in people with TB and HIV co-infection. And all these little acronyms you see are all the clinical trials that I lead. So I'm the lead scientist, and some of them are collaborative science. And this is the current platform of research studies. And the budget for this, remember, I have to raise my own grants. I don't get government money. I don't get university money. So the funding for this is over 200 million a year, right? And so we have to raise it and pay the salaries and do the work. Next. And so these are some of the randomized studies. When I say CAPRISA initiated, I'm the PI. So it was, you generate the ideas, and then through a competitive process, you get grant funding. And then there's collaborative studies, because you need to be collegial. EDCTP is European Development Country Trial Partnership, so that's European money. Competitive process to get grants. National Institutes of Health is US, NIH. And then, of course, Bill and Melinda Gates, BMGF, so I work extensively with them and so on. So just to get a sense of the range of funders for the work that we do. And I was elected to the Treatment Guidelines Committee, and of course I serve on the South African National TB think tank, the Brains Trust for TB research, policy and guidelines for South Africa. Some of the work that we do is not just science, it's how do we impact people, how do we impact society. So there's lots of policy briefs. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that I'm still a clinician in my DNA. I'm a medical doctor. I can't ignore it. And when I saw the high levels of death and dying, you go to any one of our public hospitals, TB and HIV is still number 1 and number 2 causes of admission and death. And so I developed this advanced clinical care training program. And we trained about 5,000 doctors throughout the country in 2 years. These are doctors in the front line. And then the National Department of Health invited me to develop a training curriculum, learner manuals, trainer manuals, content, and it now lives in the Knowledge Hub. So it's adopted completely by NDOH. It lives in the Knowledge Hub at NDOH, and clinicians access it for free. There's also videos and so on, very interactive. So those are one of the things that I'm proud of. The other one is a textbook of X-ray features of tuberculosis in people living with HIV. And we've made 2,000 copies free to frontline doctors throughout the country. And it's very illustrative and very practical, a guide so that we don't have an excuse for not diagnosing TB in HIV. Thanks. So since submitting my bio to you, I've published a few more, and a few more papers, as well as book chapters and a book. And next. And of course, if you look at CAPRISA's papers, our TB HIV papers are highly cited. And if you look at all original research from South Africa, again, our papers are cited as number 2 for South Africa in terms of any science related to TB and HIV. One of our metrics, this gets posted in our strategic planning that's attended by about 500 to 600 people. So it's a name and shame board. And what you don't see here is people who didn't publish, right? And our director puts it on the board. And so I make sure that my name is at least 1 or 2 so that at least I can sleep at night. Thanks. And then, of course, the most important thing in all of this is mentorship. I worked with so many people over the years, brilliant individuals who were not interested in developing my mind, who just needed me to do a job. They weren't interested that I had a passion and I had fire inside of me that needed to be ignited. I am forever grateful to my mentor and supervisor. He was patient. He taught me how to think. He taught me how to write. He taught me how to use my science to change and uplift society. I am forever grateful, and as a result of that, I pay back by making sure I mentor others. I may not mentor people for higher degrees. There is one gentleman that I mentor just to help him navigate the academic environment and help him write successful grants. I don't know his highly technical space. I don't know the technical details, so I can't mentor him in the work that he does. But I have mentored him successfully, and he holds 3 concurrent big grants simply by learning how to do things. And so these are some of the current researchers postdocs and PhDs that I'm supervising. Senamile got a first-class pass in her master's degree, despite the pandemic. And all my postdocs hold a minimum of 2, sometimes 4 grants. So they're well on their way to be independent scientists. Navisha and Senamila are joint first author on a paper that came out last month, impact factor of 50. Okay, so this is incredible work, bright people that I have a way to go. And these are the teams, my nurses, counselors, doctors, pharmacists that are in each of the clinics that I lead, that are doing some of the research that I shared with you. These are science is about fostering collaboration. People must want to work with you. They must feel confident in you that you will work and deliver. So South Africans, African, European, and North American scientists are some of the active collaborations that I have fostered and are currently enjoying. And these are the pipeline of projects that's going to take me into the future. And so a few parting words, right? I think from what I shared with you, you realize that you should not ever be a victim of circumstance. You can shape and change your destiny. You just need some clarity of thought about what it is you're about and the direction you want to go to. And just go for it. Don't let things stand in your way. Find a way around your obstacles and keep going forward. It's so important that you don't accept, I have no money, I have no means, don't have the time to study, I don't know where I can study. Don't accept that. Make a plan. It's your life. Take control. And as women, there's multiple roles that we have to balance. And, some bring you joy. I hate admin. If I didn't have to be doing any HR work, I'll be the happiest person alive, but it is what it is. And make sure there is a work-life balance. Look after yourself. I mean, today is a spoil. Be in the moment. Don't check your cell phones. Don't worry about who's the missed calls on your phones. Be in the moment. Absorb what you are doing right now so you can fully appreciate everything that you're being exposed to, right? And women must do far more to support each other. We don't. I just feel that we must lift each other up. If you are annoyed because somebody said something, oh, I can't do it, I'm too sick, my baby is unwell, put yourself in their shoes. Be empathetic. Be an empathetic leader, right? But don't be a pushover. Just be empathetic. And don't judge. Don't be quick to judge. Rather support and uplift each other. Life happens to all of us. Your mental health and well-being, the scrolling through the phones is not good for your mental health. Put it away. Fast from your phone. Tell yourself 4 hours, 6 hours this weekend. I'm not looking at status, WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, the works. I'm not. I am focusing on myself. I'm learning a new skill. I'm developing in a way that I don't make time for. It's exhausting when people are scrolling without immersing themselves in something new that's sparking off the brain and making you excited about life. Don't look at other people's lives. It's fake anyway. People put the best pictures up, isn't it? It's fake. So focus on yourself. Be the best version of yourself. And always focus towards excellence. Just be the best you can possibly be. So my journey thus far has really been wonderful. I am so grateful. It's truly been unexpected despite the twists and turns on the way. I noted earlier that chance favors the prepared mind. I'd had the undergraduate scholarships. I'd had the MRC post. I was able to decide which I'm more passionate about and make that decision. Always work hard, be honest and transparent, and that will get you far. Integrity. Integrity is so important to inspire and build confidence that others can have in you. Spoke about mentorship. It's really about giving and receiving. Again, the softer skills. You know, when people apply for certain jobs with me, it's so nice and easy to get swayed by all the wonderful symbols. But I found that it's what's inherent in the individual, what they're born with, the skills they honed, that are the skills that will take them further. The A's, the 10 A's and whatever it is gets you to a point, but it's those other skills that actually helps you go even further. And of course, do what you love and love what you do. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, both for an impressive talk, but also just for your wisdom and your humility and for the lessons you gave us. And here's a small gift. Thank you. Right, we're going to move on to our next speaker. So we heard Prof. Naidu, who is at the height of her career. And our next speaker is a young PhD student, like some of you, who is starting out of her career and is on one of those trajectories that Kogi was talking about. I've called it hashtag Black Girl Scientist because this is Zakiti Mkhize's social media platform. And if any of you have heard her, she is quite something. So Zakiti Mkhize is a PhD candidate in the HIV pathogenesis program, HPP, at the Nelson Mandela School of Medicine. She is also a Sub-Saharan African Network for HIV/TB Research Excellence, a SANTI PhD fellow. She is currently working in HIV cure studies, particularly on understanding the dynamics of transcription during HIV infection and latency. She is passionate about using science to make life-changing medical discoveries and is hopeful that we will see a cure for HIV in our lifetime. Zakiti is also an avid science communicator and a youth STEM activist. Her youth YouTube channel, Black Girl Scientist, is used as a platform where she shares her journey through science, helping others just like her to navigate the field. So Zakiti, I'm not quite sure where you're sitting. There you are. Over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me. And I just want to say congratulations to all of you, top 100 in all your respective fields. So round of applause to you. Thank you so much, Prof, for your talk. It was very, very inspiring. Sally, we need to talk about me going after the keynote address. It was absolutely inspiring, so thank you very much. Thanks to my bio, I'm not going to talk too much about what I do. Instead, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself first. So similarly to Prof, I grew up in Durban in a small kind of semi-rural township, and yeah, life was pretty okay. We didn't struggle too much. My sister actually is a lecturer at UCT, and she has her PhD. That's not the reason why I'm doing my PhD though. And yeah, it was just the two of us. We grew up with my mom and my dad. We were fortunate enough to go to private school, despite where we lived and what my parents did. Similarly to Prof as well, my parents are uneducated, but they value education, which you see in my sister and I as well. So I have wanted to be a scientist, I think, before I even knew that I wanted to be a scientist. As a young black girl going to a so-called multiracial private school, there were not a lot of black girls that I went to school with, and I basically grew up around a lot of white people. So going through school, I was an okay student. We played tennis at home. All of us played tennis. And that was, I guess, kind of what put me on the map. At school, I was a tennis captain. I've gone on to play tennis in South Africa, where I've represented the country. So yeah, I think that's really, now that when I think back, it's something that put me on the map. So do extracurricular things as well. So at school, I wasn't actually very good at science. I wasn't really good at science subjects when I was first starting out, so in like grade 8 and grade 9. And I remember my high school teacher actually discouraged me from choosing science as a subject when I got to grade 10. And I remember being very, very sad about it. And I went home one day and I said, Dad, science is so hard and I'm not getting good marks, but I really, really want to choose it as a subject, when I grow up. And my dad said to me, are other kids doing science? And I said, yeah, they are. And he said, well, why can't you do it? What's stopping you? How are you different from these other kids? And his voice, literally, even when I'm in the lab today, I can still hear him saying that when I have a failed experiment, that are other people doing it? Yes, they are. Then why can't you do it? So he really played an instrumental part in supporting me as I grew up. And of course, historically, a lot of black people are usually the first graduates in their family. They have to quickly go on and work and not really further their studies. So I've been very fortunate that my parents have supported me in furthering my studies. So then, despite me not being good at science in grade 8 and grade 9, I chose science as a subject anyway. And I said, I'll see as I'm going. And I got to grade 10, and because now I felt a mental shift, and from my dad as well, being like, you can do this. His voice was always in my head, and you can do this. So I got to grade 10, to Miss McCready's surprise, who was my science teacher. And I was in her science class. And so science back at school, for us, it was separated into physical science and life science. So that was, life science was more the biology, and then physical science was more the physics and the chemistry. The physics and the chemistry was the one that I really, really struggled with. Loved biology, was an A student in biology. So I remember when we had exams, we had June exams in grade 10. And I got one of the highest marks in the class for those exams, to Miss McCready's surprise. And that was literally the birth of my science career. When I look back, I continued doing science. It is a really difficult subject, as other subjects in the field of STEM are. But I continued to do well, and I matriculated from Durban Girls College in 2011. And then I enrolled in a science degree at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Then when I got there, I thought, science is just science. But there are literally so many majors, which I had no idea about. And that's another thing that Black Girl Science is all about, is really imparting knowledge to others that want to join as well, as to what is science, what can you do, what can you do also when you've graduated with your science degree as well? So I chose microbiology and genetics. I enjoyed the subjects in high school, and I thought, well, I may as well continue, particularly genetics. I did my undergrad in microbiology and genetics, and then I went on to do my honors. So I expected my honors degree. I remember as an undergrad, I became friends with a lot of older students who were in their postgraduates, and they said, oh, postgrad is so great. You get to be a real scientist. You get to do experiments in the lab. And I thought, yay, finally. I'm not just an undergrad who's doing lectures and writing tests and things like that. And university was very, very difficult. It is difficult. I think no matter what field of study you're in, university is difficult. It's a huge jump from high school. It was a huge culture shock for me because I had grown up so sheltered and I guess so just in my own bubble. If it wasn't school, it was tennis. So it was just that. And I got to university and I had, it's better. I got to university and it was a huge culture shock, and I had gone to an all-girls school as well. So now I was in class with boys and I was starting to find them less disgusting as well. So it was just, there are so many different variables that, come with going from high school and being in university, but also shaping your life, really, not mixing with the wrong crowds, being focused on your studies and all of that. So university for my undergraduate was very difficult. But I made it through, and as I was saying, so all the older students told me, when you do your postgraduate, you're going to be a real scientist. So I thought, yay. Enrolled in my honors in microbiology at Westville campus. Literally a hellish time in my life. Honors is extremely difficult. I mean, I thought going from high school to university was difficult, but honors, particularly the microbiology program at UKZN, is really intensive. So, and that's because we do both the coursework and the research projects as most honors projects, but I feel like the research project that I did, it was just an enormous task. It was insane. So I don't want to think about that trauma. So then after my honors, so I have actually had imposter syndrome my whole life. I think I still have it now. In honors, as difficult as things were, we had a competition, which was called SASM, which I came first for. And I thought, wow, maybe I'm kind of good at the science thing, And to my supervisor's surprise as well. So yeah, that was really kind of, I think, where the fire inside of me for research was really ignited. So as Prof said, you've covered a lot, she covered a lot of the HIV stuff, which is what I'm in, what I'm doing my PhD in now, so I won't go into the HIV stats. But, I think science and medicine cannot exist in isolation. They definitely have to coexist. And that's the reason why I got into medical science. I also remember when my mom would tell me stories about, when this HIV, people were calling it AIDS, then, AIDS came on the scene. There were funerals every weekend in the 90s. Every single weekend. If it wasn't someone you knew personally, it was definitely some family of so-and-so, a neighbor, definitely someone close in the communities that, I grew up in, and maybe most of us grew up in. HIV definitely was devastating when it came onto, the scene per se. So I transitioned to medical sciences, and I remember reading my university notice, which is something I never did, ever. So there was definitely fate, and HPP had an advert in the notice, and they wanted master's fellows. And I read up about HPP, I Googled about Prof Ndungu, who to me is the Beyonce of HIV research in South Africa. I Googled about all the different faculty members that were at HPP, and it was literally like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, this is exactly where I need to be. So I applied, and HPP also sent me an email that I don't regularly check. So when I checked that email, my interview was like in 2 days. And they had sent me a research article, which I'd have to present and answer questions on. So as an honors student, that was not an easy task for me to do back then at all. So I remember frantically in December trying to read this paper. I read the same sentence over and over and over and over again, and I did not understand a single thing. But anyway, I tried my best to prepare, and I went to my interview at HPP. And when I got there, so one of the authors on the paper I thought was actually someone on the panel, because one of the authors was a white woman's lady, and when I got there was a white lady, and I was like, I'm definitely not going to tell her lies about her own paper. So I thought that I had just flanked the interview completely. But to my surprise, HPP replied within a "we are pleased to inform you" email, and I enrolled at HPP. Doing HIV research, of course, as the name suggests, HIV pathogenesis program. Most of the research done there is on HIV research, whether it's virology or immunology. So I enrolled under the supervision of Dr. Paradise Madlala, and I am currently doing my PhD still under his supervision. And so just being at HPP, we literally have state-of-the-art labs. I have traveled overseas, I think, over 5 times since I've been to HPP, and I can definitely say that it's state of the art. The research that is produced there as well is recognized internationally. We are funded also internationally as well. So in my master's, I've always been a person who likes to put myself out there. I guess Black girl scientist, of course, was a no-brainer. And I really strongly believe in putting yourself out there. There's no negative thing that's going to come out of that. I have not experienced one to date. So after I had done my research and put myself out there and spoke to people, I was going to go on my first international conference as a master's student, which was to Canada. So I was very, very excited, and I packed my bags and off I went to Canada. When I got there, to my shock, I was the only Black person there, and I was the youngest person there as well. And a lot of people, a lot of old white men asked me, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing my master's," and they were shocked that I was even there. So I guess those kind of things throughout my journey have also fed into my imposter syndrome. But anyway, I went to the conference, I presented my work, it was great, it was freezing. It was my first time experiencing snow. And I came back and I told my supervisor all about everything that I've learned. I was doing research on a particular gene in HIV, and there was a particular presentation at the conference which was talking about the protein interaction. And basically then in my master's, my supervisor and I created my PhD project, which is what I'm doing now. And which is why I'm also so passionate about it, because it's something that I gave birth to as well, and something that's novel research. Then after that, still in my master's in 2018, my abstract got accepted into another conference, and we went to Belgium. Same thing in Belgium. Not a lot of people of color, but I guess it's Europe as well. And they were not expecting to see people of color as well. So went to Belgium. This time I went with my supervisor and other group members, so it was great. And then I was literally just telling the girls at my table that I was literally writing my thesis until the last day. On the day of submission, I remember struggling with page numbers. I was begging our postgraduate, I don't know her title, but Prathna, I don't know if any of you know her. I was begging her to please not go home because I want to submit today. And it was a Friday, and she said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything with them until Monday." And I said, "No, I do not want to miss this deadline, please." So I begged her to stay, and she did stay, and I submitted on the day. And then I graduated with my master's, cum laude. Funny story about cum laude, explaining it to my parents who are uneducated and know nothing about that. But basically, it's actually very funny how they even still say it today, of course, because it's not an English word. But they were so proud of me, super, super proud of me. And I guess I was proud of myself, too. And at the time, I hadn't really thought what I was going to do after my master's. To me, it felt like I'm leaving the race in the middle if I'm stopping there. So I enrolled in my PhD, which is what I'm doing now. I'm in my final year. I'm writing my thesis, sometimes one sentence, sometimes one paragraph, sometimes one chapter. So it's been a really, really, really really tough journey. And when I enrolled in my PhD in 2019, I went on my first research visit. So the conferences were just 4 or 5 day visits where you just go and present your work. But now I was going on a research visit for 4 months to San Francisco, one of our collaborators. I got to San Francisco. So one thing about research visits, which is a myth that I'd really like to debunk right now, is that it's not all glitz and glam at all. You're not going on vacation. You're not going to see a city that you've never seen before. You're not going to have time to explore. And I didn't know that when I went on my first research visit. So I got to San Francisco, you know, I was expecting someone to come and be kind of my buddy, hold my hand, show me things. There was none of that. I had to know how to use the public transport system. I had to know where to go, where not to go. I was on my own, really, really on my own. And research visits are lonely as well. So went on my first research visit in San Francisco and did really the first part of my PhD in those 4 months, which I prepared for publication. And yeah, came back from, so the reason I came back from San Francisco is because, of course, in March 2020, we had beautiful COVID-19 that came and really just ravaged through all our lives. So I had to cut my research visit short in San Francisco and return on the last flight to Johannesburg from Atlanta to South Africa. Very, very, very stressful time. So upon returning, it was a full lockdown, hard lockdown. I was in my first year, well, just beginning my second year of my PhD. We were not prioritized to go to the lab. My work is completely lab-based. So for me, not going to the lab, I literally went crazy. I'm pretty sure I did go crazy, but I came back from that as well. So for about a year, I was outside of the lab. I had no idea what to do. I'm not a bioinformaticist. I'm not a computer scientist. I am a laboratory researcher. So literally, it was very, very, very difficult. I think we had to bend and stretch and adapt in ways that we thought were impossible to do. And then towards the end of 2020, there was a bit of light because the labs began to open up again. They began to open up, and my supervisor and I began to prepare, you know, the first part of my PhD for publication. And then another opportunity came along, which was to go to Europe on my second research visit, which I just returned from in June. And there, it was the same thing. It was actually in my research visit in San Francisco, I remember on the first day when I arrived, the security thought that I was there for the job as a helper, as like a cleaning person. So they were very surprised when I told them that, no, I'm actually here at Gladstone Institute as a rotation student. Very surprised. So the PhD journey has been tough. It's been extremely tough because of COVID. Extremely, extremely tough. And, you know, Prof mentioned also in her speech that it's so important to take care of your mental health. And that's something I wish I would have done better. I have no regrets though, but I really wish that I took care of my mental health way more. And how many of you watch videos on YouTube? So yeah, COVID actually was the birth of Black Girl Scientist. I was sitting at home, literally probably crazy now at this point, and I've always really been passionate about, you know, mentoring people, especially people that look like me, encouraging them, debunking the myths, you know, around science, and really encouraging young women, particularly young Black women, to enroll in science subjects. I had already done so in my own capacity in mentoring young girls in our community, also in my grandmother's community as well. So I thought, wow, I used to use YouTube to watch science videos. I used to watch RK Khan Academy in my undergrad, like for everything. Yeah, laughing in agreement. So I thought, wow, YouTube now, there's so many YouTubers that use it for makeup and different things. And I thought, wow, let me go and tell people about science. So I have a cousin who's in the film industry. She gave me my camera. She's here today. And she said, here, do it. So I sat down in front of a blank background and I just filmed about science. And I said, hey, everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And I spoke about science, and Black Girl Scientist has grown from strength to strength. I've had so many opportunities because of Black Girl Scientist. I've recently been named Junior Chamber International's top young outstanding person in the world. So it's really, I've hosted, the Africa Research Health Institute Science Cafe, which is actually a really great thing that they do to bring science to people. And also in my science communication, I've won so many competitions. Literally, when I hear people read my bio, I don't believe that it's myself, which is why I still say that I have imposter syndrome now. So Black Girl Scientist has really afforded me so many opportunities, and as a result, I have registered Black Girl Scientist NPO, which is geared towards helping young women navigate the STEM field. That's through providing, career advice, through mentorship. We haven't really gotten to, being able to provide financially, because I know that's a really, really big thing in furthering your studies. And, currently I'm in the 4th year of my PhD now, final year, and I'm not fully funded. So it's really, funding is just such a huge, and I know it plays a huge part. It plays a huge part in why a lot of young people decide to go into the working world. And that's another thing that I'm really passionate about on Black Girl Scientists, sharing how to fund your postgraduate, sharing the pros and cons of actually furthering your studies and things like that. I've done numerous radio interviews as well. So all I'm waiting is for a job offer now. So, coming to my tips for success, I think really I can stand here in front of you and tell you to work hard and all those typical things, but the fire needs to burn inside you, which is what Prof also spoke about. You need to love it. You need to love what you do. And if you love what you do, you'll also feel like you never work a day in your life as well. So you need to love it. You need to have nobody pushing you to do what you do. You need to have nobody telling you that this is what you should do. You need to love it because, you're all young and beautiful. I'm sure you have like 80 years left of your life, and you don't want to be doing work that you hate for 50 of those years. So you really need to love what you do. I cannot stress that enough. It's going to play such an important role in also your mental health, because if you love what you do, you're happy, and you're going to be happy every day you go to work. So really, really love what you do. Be confident in yourself and your abilities. I think I wrote that for myself. Be confident in yourself and your abilities. Stay focused and take time out if you need it. So another crazy fact is that women wake up only 28% of the STEM workforce. So that's women being in high managerial positions throughout STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, probably innovation as well. So women really seldom come into this field because there are very few women role models for us. So it's really important also, you may feel like you're just a tiny person. Some of you are doing your undergrad, some of you are doing your postgrad, but you are inspiring someone else that's younger than you. And it's also important to lift people up whenever you can. The tiniest way possible, from helping them with the university application, any way you can, lift other people up as well, so that we not only use science to change the world, which is the main aim, but we also change the face of science as well, which is something that I've experienced over and over in my travels. So as women, we need to pull each other up and support each other, because if we work on inclusion together, it'll be faster, better, and broader. And in closing, I just want to leave you with the quote from the first African-American astronaut in space. And she said, "Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, or your curiosity. It's your place in the world. It's your life. Go on and do all you can with it, and make it the life that you want to live." Thank you.
Zakiti, all I can say, I look forward to seeing where you are in 20 years' time. You're one of those that way people. Thank you for your words.
Thank you.
We've had Prof. Naidu at the height of her career, Zakiti starting off her career, and we're now going to change track and go to someone who helps with careers. And our next speaker is Raki Bikram. Raki is also a UKZN alumnus, and she has her master's in social science and psychology. She's a psychologist, a motivational speaker, and a mental health advocate with over 13 years' experience. And we've had both speakers telling us how important mental health is. Her expert advice is featured regularly in South African and international publications, on national radio, and she is well known on social media and is featured on national television. With a background in media and communication, Raki is passionate about spreading mental health awareness and reaching out via social media to those who do not have easy access to individual therapy. Her expert advice has been featured in different forms of media, such as print, radio, television, and social media, and it helps individuals lead more meaningful lives. Her current focus has been mental health in the workplace, so very relevant to today. So Raki, over to you.
So tell me about yourself. I'll give you a moment to answer that question in your minds. I'm sure most of you, except Prof. Naidu, has somewhere in that description mentioned what you do or what you're studying to do, right? And why do we do that? Rightfully or wrongfully, we tend to link our identity very strongly to what we do. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because when we're students, we spend most of our waking hours studying. And when we're career women, we spend most of our waking hours working. So it makes complete sense that our identity becomes so intertwined with what we do. But we do know that we're a lot more than just what we do. But because we spend so much of our life working, it's really important that what we do is meaningful to us, that who we are is an important factor in what we do. And I guess it's unfair, though, because we're expected to make decisions about our careers at very young ages. And if we are meant to make decisions based on knowing ourselves and using that as a guide to choosing a career and a profession that's suited to us, I can tell you at 42, I'm still learning about myself, and we continue learning. And I don't know if you can remember the first time that you were asked about what you wanted to become. I must have been about 7, primary school, and I wonder whether you remember what you said. So when I was a child, one of my favorite things to play with were cut-out dolls that you would dress up. You would cut up their clothes and match them. So I thought I wanted to become a fashion designer. But guess what? I can't even draw. Even till today, I can't draw. So thankfully, with age comes wisdom, and we learn other ways of making important decisions in our life. So today I'm speaking about integrating the personal, or the person with the professional in you. It's integral for our career satisfaction, because career satisfaction is directly linked to our mental health and well-being. We spend so much of time at work, and it will affect everything else in your life. And if you aren't satisfied with what you do, if it doesn't bring any meaning to your life, then it will have a ripple effect on every other aspect of your life. So as psychologists, we look at 3 different aspects, other than aptitude, 3 personal aspects to help us determine what career we would be most suited to. And those are our interests, our personality, and our values. Can you imagine waking up every single day for the rest of your life and doing a job that you have no interest in? That would be tragic, right? And so therefore, taking your interests into account is important in order for you to feel motivated to get up every morning and go to work. So as psychologists, when we look at interests, we look at a model that has 6 interests, and we look at your combination of your 2 or 3 highest scores. So those are realistic meaning careers that are hands-on, that are practical, careers that are investigative. So if you're science-minded, you like scientific research, working with analytics and problem solving. Artistic, if you're a creative and imaginative person. Social, if you like helping others, and if helping others is of primary importance to you. And all professions, regardless of what you do, help someone in some way. It's just a lot more direct in certain professions, such as helping professions. And then we have enterprising professions, where you're a persuasive person, you're a good leader, you want to persuade, lead, and direct others. And those who are more conventional, who love routine, structure, and perfect. So those who like routine, structure, and administrative work. So if more than one appeal to you, that's completely normal. So we would look at a combination of your interests to see what careers would be best suited to you. So I only got to do such an assessment in my master's year already. And thankfully, I was social, investigative, artistic, which I found out I was thankfully on the right career path for what I ended up doing. The next aspect that we look at is personality. So if you go online, you find several personality tests. How many of you have tried a personality test? They're fun, right? Except, as exciting as the ones that you do online are, none of them are valid, reliable, or accurate, but they're fun. So personality testing actually is the exclusive domain of psychologists, because we know how to test and what to do with the results. So when we look at personality, we have to work in a career that is congruent with our personality. Can you imagine being an introvert? I'm an introvert, so can you imagine working in events where you have to meet people all the time and you have to be sociable? It would be dreadful, right? And very, very difficult for you. So we look at personality on different dimensions, and because they scale, so most people lean to either extreme, but being on either extreme completely, of course, isn't healthy. So the first one we look at is introversion and extroversion. So introverts prefer to work independently or in smaller teams or in environments where they have some sort of control. And extroverts, on the other hand, prefer to work in teams or where they can mix with people a lot of the time. So during the pandemic, we've seen the difference between introverts and extroverts, where most people were working at home and being called back to work. Introverts hated it and were really, really upset about having to go back to work and interact with people. But extroverts were really, really struggling. And if they had never struggled with their mental health before, this was the time that they did, because they felt lonely due to not having any connection in their lives. I'm sure at some point in your life you worked on a group project. So if you're an introvert, you probably dread group projects, and if you're an extreme introvert, you might have even just taken on the whole project by yourself and allowed everyone to get the marks for it. I see a lot of you nodding. Extroverts, on the other hand, are very, very excited to work in a group and socialize, and sometimes it can kind of go off track. So there's no good or bad. They're just preferences for where you get your energy from, what keeps you going. So the next scale that we look at is intuition or sensing. So how do you understand information? How do you make sense of things? So those who use their senses, if you bought some piece of equipment that you needed to put together, sensing people would either read the instructions, listen to something, or watch a video on how to do it, and that is how they learn, and that is how they understand. Intuitive people, on the other hand, just go with their hunch or their gut feel and what it really feels like without reading the instructions, and sometimes, or most of the time, they do get it right. So understanding which end of the scale you lean towards will also help you in a profession. So of course, if you're working as a financial manager, you can't go on hunches, right? You have to go with facts and you have to go with figures. The next scale that we look at is thinking and feeling. So do you make decisions based on logical thought processes, or do you make decisions based on feelings, either your feelings or other people's feelings? So don't get me wrong, you can be an empath, you can be a very empathic, compassionate person and still be a thinking person. So it just depends on how you make decisions for yourself. More based on logic or more comparing others. Again, if you use the example of someone working in finance, you cannot make decisions based on how you feel or how other people feel. And finally, the scale is judging or perceiving, and the terms might seem very confusing for what they actually represent. So judging people are not judgmental people. They're just people who love everything to be very orderly. They love some sort of routine and structure, predictability, and know what they need to do. Whereas people on the other end of the spectrum love spontaneity and they love flexibility. So understanding your personality is also another vital aspect in determining a career and a working environment that's going to be most suitable to you. And finally, we look at values. So you can do the job that you love most in the world. There will be some aspect of it that stresses you out, or there will be some time or some situation that will be really stressful. And therefore, it's really important to choose a career that's aligned with your values. Again, we spend so much of our time at work. Our values are actually almost like a compass that guides our directions in life. So whether it's choosing a life partner, making a career decision, or deciding how to spend your money, your values should play a very important role in helping you decide. So your values could be anything from altruism, needing to help people through your work, to financial reward. There's nothing wrong with that. So obviously you can't be a school teacher if financial reward's important, because the two will not be aligned. Or you might have values of achievement. Achievement doesn't need to be other people recognizing it, but it can be. But sometimes it might be you need to feel a sense of personal achievement by doing something new, by adding some sort of value to the world. So consider what your core values are and how that aligns to the careers that you hope to get into. Because we spend so much of our lives at work, it's crucial to feel satisfied, to feel fulfilled, and to feel like you can make a meaningful contribution to yourself and to others' lives. And congratulations to the top 100 STEM students. And I think it's such a blessed opportunity for you to be here today. We've listened to such inspiring role models that you have of women in STEM. And I hope that they inspire you to reach the heights that you want to. Thank you.
I wish we could all follow your advice, and then we would all be exactly where we need to. But certainly for myself, I'm happy with what I do, and I hope you find out that you're happy with what you do too. Thanks, Rocky. Okay, so UKZN alumnus, Prof. Nomali Ngobes, is a 2022 Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South African from Northwest University. Nomali earned this recognition for using science and innovation to create an equitable future where every person has access to resources and opportunities. Prof. Ngobes achieves this by combining her expertise in indigenous plants and potato cultivation to train small-scale farmers. She is known for her work in food security, highlighting underutilized crops to alleviate hunger and boost economic development in rural communities. She completed all of her degrees at UKZN, which culminated in a PhD in bioresources systems in 2017. Before joining Northwest, Prof. Ngobes was the Deputy Head of Department of Botany and Plant Biotechnology at the University of Johannesburg. Recognition for her work has led to features in popular media platforms like Million STEM and iSet Science Careers, as well as a nomination as an emerging researcher for the 2022 NSTF South 32 Awards. So another high-flying UKZN alumnus. Nomali, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sally, for the great introduction. Ladies, good afternoon. I'm doubtful on whether I should ask you to stand. I'm in the midst of greatness, and I wanted to congratulate you and give you a recognition. If you can just stand, and you just clap, give yourself an applause. Thank you so much. We may take our seats. My name is Nomali. I am a bit informal, so I'm hoping you'd appreciate that in this setting. I'd like to thank the organizers, Sally and Swasti, for inviting me, and also Johnson & Johnson for sponsoring the event. It's such a great opportunity to be molded at a young age in a STEM career. This is because often STEM careers are quite challenging, specifically for women. You find yourself being the first in many occasions. So if you're in, depending on the level of study you're in, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, you'd find that in your class you're the first or one of the few that you see who are like you. When you advance, you get into PhD, even fewer make it there. When you get into the working world, there's really a scarcity there. And then it just continues all the way to just starting up your career, advancing to management, getting into leadership positions. You notice we have very few female leaders. So this is, it may be a second step for you, a third step for you. So I really applaud you and congratulate you for getting this far. Now, I was invited to talk about how you become your future and how you are your future and how you start viewing yourself in that way. I am going to start by sharing a bit about myself today and hope that you relate or you find yourself in the different things I will talk about. If you don't, I hope that it becomes a package for you to relate in future, because some of the things we find ourselves in are actually common in the journey. As Sally mentioned, I'm an alumnus, a proud one. I finished all my qualifications at UKZN. When I usually tell my story, I say I came to varsity like everyone else seeking a better future. Prof. Kochi, I really resonated what you said. And I think with a lot of us it resonates. So we come looking for a better future. What I often never share is that actually I was barefooted the first time I came to UKZN. I came on this campus. It was Howard College campus. I'd walked from medical school all the way to Howard College to meet for the first time the program coordinators for a BSc4 degree. For me, I'd come from just a township, Unumlazi, from a single parent, a mother. One of the first to make it to university, but that wasn't a focus. It has never been a focus for me. Coming here meant my world was going to change. So I walked those 1.6 kilometers up barefooted, knowing that walking back, I'll be a changed person. I then embarked on a journey. I was accepted into a BSc4 degree. The money I had to accept the offer, to be honest, was borrowed. My mother borrowed the money. That meant even after accepting an offer, I had to make a plan on how I would study. Luckily, I had applied for NSFAS, and eventually it did come through. The other challenge, which might seem small now, was that I didn't even have clothing that I thought would maybe presentable among my peers. You may think this is a small thing. 2 years prior to that, I declined an offer to go to Germany because that situation was quite dire. My school uniform had holes. Class teachers were bringing me sandwiches to make sure I ate at school. So I really was ashamed. Somehow family came together and they put up some money. I managed to get clothing, attend university, and I got NSFAS to start. I was excited all the way through. Now you'll notice that you are quite self-conscious when you come to university. You come from a familiar environment in high school. Most of us, I assume here, were high flyers. So you come from an environment where you're recognized as a symbol of excellence, and your peers often would recognize you as such. Most people who make it to university are that. Now, when you come into the university, it's a completely different system. Your peers come from all over the place. You'd find that if you are lucky, there are 1 or 2 people who come from the same school as you, even within the same neighborhood you can identify with. But most of the time, it will be just a new world, completely new world for you to adjust to. Teaching style is different. Lecturers are different. Like really, the diversity will hit you hard. So you have to adjust to all of that. If you've made it to first year, if you've made it to 4th year, that means you're very adaptable and you manage to advance through all those stages. If you're at master's, PhD, wow. Like you really have. And you need that to sink in, because when it does sink in, it gives you courage to take the next step. It's your own graduation you give to yourself so that you can take the next step, so that when challenges come, it's easier for you to say, I've been through that, I can make it through here. So by the time we see you as a vice chancellor, a director, you've gone through multiple steps that would need that courage to come out of you. So I went through the same process in the university as well. So finishing, I went through the first semester. First semester, 3 things drove me. First, I knew I couldn't go back home, definitely not empty-handed. I already had debt coming, remember? And I was building up debt with NSFAS. So the second thing for me was that with NSFAS, if I passed everything, I'll get a 50% discount. I don't know what the system looks like now, but back in that day, this was 2005, if you got all your modules right, 50% discount. So even though you accumulate the debt, somehow you manage to limit how far it can go. The third thing was coming from a background where I was top of my class and couldn't make it to a number of programs I'd applied for, getting into a BSc 4 degree, which is an extended program of a BSc 3 degree. I wasn't so happy. Honestly, I wasn't. I thought, no, I should be sitting with everyone else. Why am I? This is going to slow me down. So I really wanted to advance out of that. So first semester, I aced everything. And then I wanted to change back to some medical degree or something within the medical school. I changed to biomedical sciences. I did that only for 1 semester. It only took 1 practical. It was a black typing practical. The doctors in the room and all the medical students, please forgive me. It took 1 practical. It was blood typing. I saw one of my classmates getting an injection in. I was like, it's over. I managed to finish the semester, but at the end of the semester, I changed. I was back in biological sciences, but luckily then I was back in a 3-year stream. I managed to get through, but I also had one eminent challenge that was there, the financial part of things. The fact that I still had to support myself, try and help out at home, because they couldn't help me at all, really. So I finished the first year, went back home, it was hard. I realized that even though university was hard, the home was actually tougher. So I came back the following year, looked around, went around the School of Biological Sciences, looking for people willing to hire me. I came past Prof. Paula Watts. She's actually now Professor Paula Watts. She was Paula back in the time. She said, no, go and see Pat. She pointed at Pat's office. I went to Prof. Bezek's office. She said, come and volunteer. Come in my lab when you've got some free time and see what you can do. I came in, volunteered 1 hour a week. That's how much time I could spare. I came in, volunteered 1 hour a week, for the first month. Second month, she paid me. So from the second year, first semester, I started working as a research assistant in a lab until I finished honors. For me, that provided a huge push because it meant I could at least not worry about finances so much, and I could also support at home now. I could throw in whatever I had extra and help out at home. So I went through, finished biological sciences. By the time I finished midway through because of the conversion between degrees, so it was midway through the year. I finished off working as a research assistant, growing in capacity in a lab. And then at the end of it, when you've come from a situation where you're the first person who's supposed to make it out to the light, they expect you to really work at the end of the degree. And I don't blame anyone. I think put in the same position, that would be the expectation. So you can imagine how that was received when I said I wanted to come back for honors. My mother cried. She cried and said she had hoped all these years it was going to change. But now it was not going to change. So that meant right then, no financial support. Don't even ask. Don't even. So I came back. At that point, my mentor, Prof. Bezek, we had been watering some plants, Australian plants, which are ornamental plants of value. She said, just sell these to nurseries. I sold them to nurseries around, and people wanted to buy. Came out to just over 9,000 rands. She used the money to pay for my honors. That's how I managed to cover tuition. And then in terms of residencies, I went around the residencies and asked if I could assist. And they said, no, the student resident assistant posts that are around. I applied, I got in. This meant I could stay on res without having to pay. I made it through honors. Honors is a cracker. If you've gone through honors, if you're in a program where there's honors, I know there's little slip. And if you do find joy during that time, hooray to you. Like you're really making it. I'm guessing if you're in engineering or a medical program, that's probably fourth year or an equivalent. So I made it through honors. After that, you'd think a person would say, no, I've made it, let me go. But it's already in your blood. By the time you get there, what you don't notice is that what you go through now is actually training you. It's you becoming used to it. It's who you are going to be. So it's shaping you into the type of person you are later going to be. You'll stand on those foundations when you go into the world of work. So cry if you cry, you'll find that you miss it and you start asking for it. You are the one who starts asking for it when it's removed. Made it through, then did masters. Now at masters, this meant just work and get into research. I'd already developed the inclination for research upon just exposure. Working as a research assistant, you get to interact with PhD, masters, postdocs, international people who come in and work with your mentor. So it was already there. I could see the future forming right in front of me. So I really enjoyed masters. I think I enjoyed it too much because it took longer than 2 years. Now at the end of masters, it happened that it was in plant conservation. For me, it was just conserving threatened plant species around KZN and beyond. And at that time, I finished the degree. Examiners granted an exemption. The high degrees committee said, no, not over 2 years. So around that time, I was like, okay, if it's in this field, it's likely going to take longer for a PhD. Where can I redirect to and still be able to achieve the goals? So I redirected. I saw agriculture as a huge opportunity to do conservation indirectly and actually intensify conservation of particular plant species. What this means is that if you take any threatened plant species, incorporate it into an agricultural system, mainstream agriculture, you'll be cultivating it, which means you don't have to worry about preserving it, keeping it being threatened by the environment. That's where I wanted to go. So I looked around, found a couple of engineers in Prof. Troy's department who were working within the field, agriculture, engineering, applied. They took me in. They said, yes, come for training. I went in. Now, this meant I didn't have a bursary, scholarship, nothing. For each step that you take, you have to plan a year ahead, get the finances in order. If you have support of parents, get the support, secure the support. If you don't, apply for research scholarships, grants, fellowships, bursaries the previous year to make sure you're well taken care of. Now, for me, this meant, again, I had to start afresh. I took up a job as a spinning instructor at the university gym. So I was on a bike teaching students how to cycle. Like, really. But that helped me a lot because it helped me develop and incorporate exercise as part of my daily routine. Took care of stress indirectly. To cut that long story short, I eventually got the first permanent post at the University of Johannesburg as a lecturer. I worked through that and recently got the new prof title. You may notice that my... You may notice maybe there's somewhere where it still says doctor. It's because it's really, really new. Now, I'm telling you this story and added a bit of detail so that you may see that it's not easy and the challenges never really run short. Like, it's just characterized by challenges all the way through. What I would like you to notice, though, if you haven't, is that actually throughout this journey, you choose which direction to go. You choose. You choose what to say yes to. You choose what to say no to. You choose which tests mean a lot to you, which tests don't. You choose whether this semester you stick it out and take it through and finish the program, or you redirect. You choose whether to take an internship or to carry on studying. You choose whether to shadow a mentor or not to. And actually, those choices that you make customize you. The university will give you education that is pretty much similar to all your classmates. What makes you different are these choices that you make along the way. Now, when you go out and work to the work environment, you get selected based on the skill set you offer. And this usually goes beyond the program you've learned in class. It depends on what you can do and can do well, and what you love and what you can invest yourself in. And as you can see, I can give you an assignment today, the very same assignment. One person can get 100%, another person get 100%. But if I ask those people to apply that information to a particular task, which is what a job is, they do completely different things. This is because of the inclination you have as an individual, what you like, what you don't like, what you're strong on, what you've honed in on throughout these years. What have you built? Who are you? That's what we ask. So making those decisions is something you do every day. You do that every day. You decide whether you are doing this, you're not doing this. Stay in this program the entire day. Contact the Johnson & Johnson people to ask for contacts, more contacts internationally, nationally. Carry it on. That's a decision you make on your part. It customizes you. Tomorrow, one individual from this group will have a network that is valuable nationally, a network that is valuable internationally, a network that is only confined to this room, depending on what you've decided. So that is what becomes of your life. Basically, you are your future. And just to do a little bit of mind shifting for you, whatever you think of yourself and you think you are capable of is most likely what you're going to build. So what I'm here to do today is actually build up a bit of your self-esteem and say, you know, you've gotten this far, you've gotten in you can go far because you know you've gotten to this point. And you have a number of opportunities that will open up for you. You will take them. Now choose to take it forward and know that you are capable of doing that. Now, for me, I have a number of people I look up to just to try and create and carve a career for myself. You notice that most of us who are here are still young. We'll say maybe life expectancy or career expectancy that you'll have would range maybe 20 years if you are much more mature, all the way to 50, 60 years. If you're still going to work for that long, you better be doing something you like. You better be doing something that means something. It has to mean something to you, because if it doesn't mean something, then it'll be difficult to wake up in the morning. It'll be quite difficult to wake up in the morning. So personally, I look up to people who've managed to pave a way in spaces where there was no one else to do that. So in most of the instances, it will be women who are the first in their field. Prof. Kochi, you're in my list. You're in my list. So particularly, I'll just highlight an example, which I think is now evident to the whole country. Prof. Pakeng, UCT Vice Chancellor, using a STEM field, mathematical education, standing in a time where really mathematical education was not something we looked up to as women. Not women of color, women of anything, women altogether. No one looked up to it, and it's not something women aspire to be. And she pioneered and to be the first. In many platforms that it entailed, she continued to be the first. That has put her in a public leadership role where now she can transform lives on a daily basis. So you would find yourself that you'll be a first as well in many spaces that you'll engage in. Take courage and pioneer. Prof. Troy did say she was the first for a very long time without recognition up until she was recognized. Unfortunately, up until today, you'll still find yourself in many roles where you're the first. Many. Luckily, in platforms like this where we congregate as women, it'll be just mostly women. But in many of the careers or the roles you'll pursue, you'll be the first one. Take courage and be there. Mentor others, lift them up. Be the first for a while, and then build a crowd, build a network. Pull others to that space. We're stronger in numbers. Otherwise, that is all I wanted to share with you. You are your future.
Thank you. I remember Namali as a student here, and it wasn't that long ago, because then that means I'm old. And now she's a professor. So just bear that in mind if you have your own dreams. And what strikes me about Namali is she made it happen. She made a plan. Whatever came her way. So thanks for coming, all the way from the Northwest. So we are coming towards the end of our afternoon. I hope you have found it both inspiring and lots of fun. And I'd just like to call on Michelle Lang, who is from Johnson & Johnson, to give the vote of thanks.
Hey everyone, where to start? 4 wonderful speakers. Prof. Christina Troy, thank you for opening for us today. To Zakiti, Nomali, Raki, and Kogi, what inspirational woman you are. Thank you for being the strong people that you are. Thank you for inspiring these young women today. I too am an alumnus from UKZN. I did my honours in '92 here, and so it holds really special memories for me too. And I sincerely hope that going forward, all of you will remember these wonderful words of these ladies today. Like they all said, believe in yourself, hold yourself up, hold yourself strong, network with other people. Not only is your degree going to give you a job in the future, but your belief in yourself, your strength and your confidence is going to give you a career. That network is going to give you a career. J&J is here to support women in STEM, not only in the past, but going forward into the future as well. That means supporting on a mentoring level. It means supporting in terms of doing events like this, global webinars with international speakers. And wherever you can, please reach out to your deans in your departments, reach out to myself. We're more than happy to mentor, to speak to you, and to help you wherever you need assistance. Today, you'll see on your tables the little goodie bags. It says, to know strong woman and to be strong woman. Please go ahead and do that. Today, there's one other person who's an extremely strong woman. She's beautiful, resilient, and strong, and without her, this event wouldn't have happened. Sally Frost, thank you so much. I have something for you. Give me a minute. Beautiful, pink, as the rest of today. Our national flower, but strong and resilient. Thank you, Sally.
Okay, thank you, ladies. And from my side, I'd like to thank my team, Swasti Mani and Wendy Mgadi, who have made this look so beautiful, and the caterers. You must agree the food was delicious, and the decor.
Today we are at UKZN, Howard College campus, for the Women in STEM event. So Women in STEM is science, technology, engineering, maths, manufacture and design, so STEM2D. This event is sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, as Johnson & Johnson encourages the development of women, careers in STEM, so taking women not from just having a career and a career path, but an entire lifestyle around STEM. From a degree, moving forward into an entire lifestyle where the woman is working in many of the different sciences, from maths, computer, data science, to engineering, marketing and agriculture.